Kia ora everyone, just beaming to you from the home office situation that we have set up at Premier House, and I thought I would just check in with everyone and give you a quick update on the cases that were reported today in New Zealand. So you would have seen today the Director General of Health, Dr. Ashley Bloomfield, reported that we had zero new cases in New Zealand. The detail behind that announcement is that whilst we had one positive test, or what we call confirmed case today, that case had already been declared in our numbers. They were previously a probable case, and so their confirmation of being a positive today didn't change our overall numbers. So hence the zero new cases. And so I imagine that there will be lots of people out there feeling really fantastic about that, and I do too. But also, there's just a little bit of caution that I want to throw in there. What we're seeing now, and many of you will be familiar with this, of course, because of what we've learned about COVID along the way, is that, of course, it does take some time for us to see COVID cases really come through and then show up in our testing and so on. And so whilst it's really fantastic that we have no new cases today, really what we're still seeing are the effects of everyone's fantastic efforts at level 4 and during the lockdown. And so what we need to do is keep seeing these kinds of low results, zero results, or low case numbers for the next wee while, and particularly from the end of the week onwards, because that will tell us how we're doing now that we've opened up a little bit. Some of you will have heard me talk about level 3, where we are now. It is a bit of a waiting room. It's a place where we go to check that, yes, we're correct, that we don't have widespread community transmission, that we do have things under control. So then brings me to the point of, well, what are we doing in the intervening time? Well, actually, we're continuing on with lots of testing across the country to proactively go out and see whether or not there are cases we've missed. I was just looking through some of the testing plans for the DHBs today, our district health wards. They're doing a fantastic job of identifying places they should go to check whether people have had exposure to COVID. And so looking at, for instance, essential workers, people being in the front line like the police, and then proactively testing, and also getting a good regional spread as well. So that's kind of some of the work that will be happening throughout the rest of this week, as well as the things that you're usually used to seeing us do as part of our COVID management, contact tracing, isolation, and so on. Some people have asked me, what will we be thinking about when we make the decision to go to level 2? So let me just run you through that really quickly. So today, Cabinet had a conversation and talked about what the different requirements will be at level 2. You'll remember that with the alert system we have things that can operate at each of the levels. And what we'll be doing this week is going through, checking that we've got all those settings right, and I'll make some announcements about that on Thursday. And then on Monday, we make the decision over whether or not we're ready to move there. So lots of planning can go on in the in-between time. So we'll give advance notice to businesses around what the expectations are for the levels. Then everyone gets a bit of a heads up on Monday over what the plan is, and we'll give time. We won't do anything immediate. We don't move straight away. We'll give time so people can prepare for any future move. And so people have been asking, what's the kind of things that you factor in when you make those decisions? You know, what did you consider when we went to 4 to 3? What will you consider when we go from 3 to 2? What's interesting, of course, is it's not just numbers. So we don't have to have zero cases every day in order for us to move to level 2. So don't worry, you don't have to see zero every single day for us to move. But what we do need to see is some real consistency around where those cases have come from. So say we get people who test positive having come back to New Zealand from overseas. Well, we know then that that's come from overseas, and because all of those people go into essentially quarantine at the border, that means we've got good control of that, and they're not passing it on to anyone else. If we see someone who picks up COVID because they live with someone who may have been exposed to it through, for instance, unfortunately, through some of the cases we have at the moment in a couple of aged care clusters we've got. So if they pick it up that way, then we know where it's come from. And so that's really important. If we pick up cases where we can't tell the story of what's happened, then actually that's more worrying for us. And so that's what we're really looking into. And so for every case that comes through at the moment, we're getting all of that detail. And within an hour or so of getting the result, an interview has happened usually with a public health unit. They're asking all those questions, whether someone's been overseas, what their contact has been with COVID cases, and so on. So those are all the things that we factor in. So what I can assure you is when we do make the decision to move, it will be because we feel the evidence is telling us that we have COVID under control in New Zealand. And so that's why we can feel confident about opening things back up with retail, for changing what we're doing in our schools, and so on. And so that's why we really drill into it, and we won't make that decision unless we feel confident about that. So I want everyone to feel assured about that. Of course, so some of the other things that we, of course, need to be thinking about is that when we have restrictions in place, that does have an impact on the economy. It does have an impact on people's jobs, and therefore it has an impact on their livelihood. And so that's really, that's something we've been focusing on every step of the way. The wage subsidy has played a huge role in looking after people. It's over $10 billion has gone into supporting people's incomes while they perhaps haven't been able to work. Of course, that lasted for 12 weeks. So that runs through till June. Of course, as we've been opening up, that takes a bit of pressure off, but we know there's more work that needs to be done. That's why on Friday, we announced a small business loan scheme. So if you haven't heard a bit of detail about this, I want to share it quickly with you now because I want people to know it exists. If you're a small business with 50 or fewer employees, you'll be able to access through IRD, so through the government, a loan that can be up to a maximum of $100,000. The way we calculate how much you're able to access is that you can have a base loan of $10,000 and the equivalent then of $1,800 per full-time employee that you have on your books. So the bigger you are, the more you're able to borrow. It's interest-free for the first 12 months, but thereafter you're paying interest, but you don't have to start paying payments until 24 months, and the interest rate's set at 3%. So it gives people certainty about what to expect there. We were concerned that people weren't able to access essentially cash flow at this really critical time, and so that's in response to that. So if you know small businesses who might be in that situation, make sure that they get in touch with IRD. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of a sense of the things that we've been working on, the things we've been thinking about, and the decisions that we're making in the week ahead. So just to recap on that again. On Thursday, I'll be announcing more of the details around what level 2 looks like, ready for when we do eventually move there. On Monday, Cabinet will be considering that decision, and then we'll have announcements on Monday afternoon. On the issue, I'm just seeing the words Australia pop up, so I thought I'll give you one final update on that. Tomorrow, I've been invited to come to the National Cabinet in Australia. So the Premier is getting together, chaired by Prime Minister Scott Morrison, and they'll be talking about COVID and their response, and they've asked me to jump on the call. It'll be a chance for us to talk about COVID-19 and all that we're both learning, but also New Zealand and Australia, we're both in the privileged position of starting to talk about whether or not we can open up travel between us. Now, we won't be there in the near, the very, very short term, so it's not something that will happen in, for instance, the next couple of weeks. But what we do want to work towards is a trans-Tasman bubble, the ability for us to move again between one another's countries. So that's something that we're going to talk about tomorrow, and I have a bit more to say on that tomorrow as well. Right, I should leave everyone to it, let you get back to your evening. Sorry, I've done a terrible job again of scrolling through and multitasking and reading your comments as I talk. So I have to make a decision sometimes between a stop-starty Facebook Live or me just trying to get as much information to you as I can. Thank you for tuning in. What I'll make sure I do is, as we come up through the week and as more questions might arise about the future, what the different alert levels look like, I'll jump on and spend a bit more time talking with you all and just sharing a bit more detail. Till then, I hope everyone's looking after themselves. I hope your bubbles are healthy and well. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.